For each element in the map, there is something showing what 21st century skill is addressed. In this little example here, it's productivity and accountability. There is on the left-hand column a definition of what that skill is. There are sample student outcomes and examples, and in each case then we have an outcome and an example. And then we have sprinkled throughout there little icons that refer to those interdisciplinary themes I mentioned, and little icons that show which art this given example is representing. Now in some cases the examples represent multiple arts, but in some cases they just represent one. Let me give you a couple of examples of that. So for example, here's just how one of these looks. So in this case, this is for critical thinking and problem solving. You'll notice there is one outcome that cuts across all grade levels. That's frankly something different than we did in the art skills map that the other subjects didn't do. But under each one, say under the 8th grade one, you have an example under that outcome. And the first example is tagged with little buttons that show that this also applies in terms of civic literacy and environmental literacy. And that first example for the 8th grade is a dance and theater example. So let's get down to some details here. For critical thinking and problem solving, the outcome that we define for this is that students use various types of reasoning to think and reflect critically and solve problems in both conventional and in innovative ways. Okay, that sounds reasonable enough. So what does that look like in the classroom? Well, here's an example that happens to be from 12th grade visual arts. Students view and discuss
Okay, I just unmuted myself. I think we just lost Mike's sound. So Mike, if you can hear me, maybe you can make some kind of adjustment. Yeah, lost Mike's. Deanna said the same thing. So Mike, maybe. Oh, there you are. You're back. Now? Yes, you're back now.
Okay, I'm sorry. I don't know what happened.
In mid-word, it went away, but you're back now.
Okay, well, sorry about that. I like computers when they work, but
right, don't we all?
So at any rate, back on this example from critical thinking, I think you can see that if you were to go into a school board member and say, the arts are really important because we want our kids to know critical thinking. The school board member would say, yeah, sure, but I don't get what you're talking about. So the idea is that we've given a set of examples that you can use to say, this is a reasonable thing. I can't promise that this is happening in every visual arts class in the country right now, but it's something that is a reasonable thing that does and can happen in arts classes. Let's take a look at communication. The outcome for that, see, is that students communicate in a variety of contexts through a variety of artistic media, including technologies, to convey their own ideas and to interpret the ideas of others. The example is in dance. Students research site-based choreography to analyze the impact of a location, and then they work on create their own piece of choreography based on another specific site that communicates a clear message or point of view. We actually have some examples of students doing this one and doing some very fine dances. There's a great example that we have that if I could show video, I'd show you right now, but that doesn't really work here, from Norfolk, Virginia, where some students did a dance at the seashore, sort of sensitive to that environment. Collaboration. And here's a big one that people want for all of our students. We want kids to be able to work together responsibly and flexibly and demonstrate their ability to respect diverse ideas and come to consensus to accomplish a common goal. The example here is from 12th grade theater. Working together, students share the different responsibilities needed to produce a one-act play, collaboratively assign specific roles as costumer, set designer, actor, etc. And in these roles, analyze a script and agree on an interpretation that will bring the play to life. Now, I think it's easy for anyone, suppose you're going in and you're talking to someone in your business community trying to get support for your arts curriculum. And, you know, they maybe like theater a little bit, but if you can point out to a businessman that this kind of collaborative work happens routinely when students get together to do theater, they might understand a little more directly how this is going to help them have a workforce in the future. Creativity and innovation. Students investigate processes, implement creative ideas, and revisit traditional ideas. Well, here's an example from music. The kids study a particular composer's work, they compose a theme and create variations on that theme in that style. They use electronic software to notate it, orchestrate it using sound synthesized or acoustic sources, and then publish it in a class book for students to perform. So I think you can see the idea of this. This is not a curriculum. The skills map has merely a few vignettes of what is possible with good directed teaching toward the 21st century skills. And so the idea is that this should help teachers jumpstart new ideas for teaching, and as a matter of fact, we are planning on following this up with a series of more lesson plans and publications. But really more to the point right away is it's an advocacy tool that you can take into decision makers. So why would a decision maker care? Well, here's a study that the AMA and P21 did just a little bit ago in April, and they asked executives, has your organization identified these skills as priorities for employee development and talent management and so forth? And you can see those numbers there. Almost 80% said that communication skills are absolutely essential for their employee development and planning. Critical thinking, collaboration, and creativity were all up there. Similarly, when they asked these executives, do they measure these skills and competency in performance reviews? Well, yeah, look at those numbers. Almost all of them do. When they asked these same executives, do they make an effort to assess these skills when they hire new employees? They say yes. Well, think of how powerful this is. If you're going into your county supervisors or state legislature and you're trying to say we need a strong arts program in the schools, and you know we all know how that goes. No one's against art programs, but they might be very soft in their support because they think, gee, we have things that are higher priorities. You can say, well, no, you don't, because you have to teach kids how to do critical thinking, how to do communication, how to do collaboration and team building, how to do creativity and innovation, how to adopt those sort of styles of thinking and habits of thought. And one of the very best ways, a uniquely good way of doing that, is through the arts. Well, when we asked them how is this going to do in the future, you'll notice that 75.7% of these executives didn't say these are sort of going to be important in the future. They say they're going to become more important in the workforce. So to the extent that education is important for developing the workforce, the Arts Skills Map is trying to point out how. Now, let me be clear. I'm not saying that's the only thing education is for. You know, I'm a parent. I have 3 kids. I want my kids to have good jobs. I also want them to be fulfilled human beings. I want them to be culturally aware. I want them to be socially aware. So the skills map is not meant to say that those other essential outcomes of education are less important. It's merely trying to draw a line in the sand saying that if you really want kids to understand all of these things and to be productive members of society and our economy in the future, that this is going to be essential. So for resources, you can send me an email and I'll get back to you if you have any questions. You can find the Art Skills Map on the Partnership for 21st Century Skills site. At that address you'll see there. You have to go under their resources button and sort of drill down. They're redesigning the site to make it a little easier, but right now it's a little hard. If you can't find it, send me an email and I'll send you a direct URL. I mentioned that we as a group, that is the writers of the Skills Map, had also developed a document on the supporting structures. That is, if kids are going to have half a chance of reaching these skills, what do you need in terms of the arts? And that document lives on the Arts Education Partnership website at the URL you see in front of you. So that's basically my whirlwind tour of the Art Skills Map. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Well, Mike, I want to start by thanking you very much. That clarified many things for me. I hope it did for others as well. And I also really want to thank MENC and you for taking leadership in getting involved with the 21st Century Partnership, because I think the work you've done here, your expertise and bringing together the other arts disciplines is really important, and we certainly appreciate that.
Well, thanks.
I have one sort of just almost trivial question. When was P21, the Partnership for the 21st Century, when was that founded? How long has it been around?
Gee, I was at one of their meetings and they were talking about an anniversary. As I recall, don't quote me on this, but I believe they're 8 years old now.
Oh, okay.
It's interesting. They've just had a reformulation, and to show how kind of politically powerful they are, they used to be based in Arizona. They have just moved to the Washington, D.C. area, and they're housed in the same building with the same offices as the Council of Chief State School Officers, which is the organization to which all the state.
Our education commissioner.
Yeah, your education commissioner, for
right,
example, is a member of that organization.
Mm-hmm.
So they're right down the hall and they chat all the time.
Excellent. I have another question, and I think that we need to really look at this and use it as a great resource in formulating our advocacy arguments and positions. But Florida is not a member.
Right.
How could teachers use this, or who else might be using this material?
A couple of things. Anyone can use it. For one thing, there is no copyright claimed or implied in this. So as a teacher, you could use this to inform your own practice, inform your own teaching. I think, as I said, the most powerful use immediately is for advocacy. Mm-hmm. Suppose you're a teacher, and I don't know, in Florida, do you have basically a lot of site-based autonomy for principals to decide what goes on?
Highly site-based.
So if your principal says, okay, I guess I've got to have this music program or this visual arts program, but, I don't really know what we're doing. This gives you a way to have a discussion with the principal. Suppose you're in high school, and you say, gee, principal, aren't you interested in higher graduation rates? Don't you think that our kids need to find jobs after they get out? Well, unless you want those jobs to be purely menial jobs, these kids have to be able to defend themselves in the 21st century workforce that demands that they are able to work with others, to think creatively, to think critically, and all those other things that we discussed. And this is just something that gives them a couple of examples of how that can be true. It brings it to life. It's one thing if a music teacher goes into a school board meeting and says, we need strong arts programs in order to achieve these 21st century skills in our kids. If you could talk a major executive from a major corporate presence in your state to do that same address, it would be more powerful.
Mm-hmm. Of course, yes. I think that it just struck me as I looked at that list of organizations that, we really have some close ties to some of them here in Florida, and maybe that's a good way that we could work together. I know they get worn out of being asked for money and resources, but we need their ideas.
Yeah, but if you ask, well, you could ask them for that, but also I think that one way, even before you do a monetary ask, it's always wise to get them involved.
Right.
If you ask them to come with you to discuss the absolute essential nature of a strong, balanced education program for all kids in Florida, I think they'll be flattered because you're saying, you are an executive, so therefore you are an expert on what is needed in the workforce of the future.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I think you've really been great.
Okay. Well, thank you. As I said, my email is up on the screen there. Feel free to get in touch with me. If I can't answer a question, I'll try and figure out how to answer it. And then I guess I'll just sign off. Up here in the Washington area, we have some snow on the ground, so I'm going to try and slog my way home.
Okay. Well, thanks so much, Mike. I just took the
the
program back. Thanks.